client interaction and client engagement. Now, those are two phrases that get bounced around a lot in consumer facing businesses. But for financial professionals, they mean so much more. Taking the time to build a trusting and candid relationship can lead to successful outcomes for the client and the advisor. Now, Ryan Poterack, first of all, it's good to be talking to you again.
Hey, Patrice, good to see you again.
I love the background, the new house, looking really good.
Thank you.
All right. Now, Ryan, you and your team at PCA, you put a major emphasis on building relationships with your clients.
We do.
What are some examples where that emphasis really helped lead to a great outcome?
Well, and one of the questions I ask 100% of the time when I first get acquainted with a prospective client is, what's been your experience with my industry? What's been good, not so good? Just get a sense of where they're coming from. By far, the most common answer is, I never hear from my financial professional. They say it in one way or the other. And so all I've done is committed to that never being the case with us. So I think in simple terms is frequent but non-intrusive communication with clients that has some intention behind it. And I think we don't necessarily know what's going on in the lives of the families that we serve. And I think if we put the onus on the client or the family to reach out to us, as I think much of the industry does, that creates a little bit of a barrier over time, as opposed to us, coming up with, again, some intentional ways to reach out on a regular basis. And we certainly do outreach through a variety of channels, or I call them channels.
Sure. And I should think that probably varies from client to client, and you have to learn how much interaction they want.
Yes. And internally with the team, there are times when things can feel redundant to people on my team. And I want to reinforce that, okay, maybe you've done this certain type of outreach to a bunch of clients, but it may be the first time that you've done it to this particular client of this type. And I also want to err on the side of more communication than less. I mean, effectively in the cases with our clients, we're stewards for their overall wealth. And that's a big deal. And we treat it as such.
Have you seen mistakes made by advisors who they don't form that one-on-one relationship?
We're in an industry of numbers in large part. And so I think there's industry momentum towards the analytical, towards the quantitative. And so I think it is possible that some advisors and some firms focus exclusively on all of the metrics, the portfolio, right, and the R squared and the standard deviation and rates of return and all of that. And that is a mandate, I think, that we all accept as financial professionals. However, that can lead to, well, it doesn't help the relationship per se. And I think it also can lead to treating every family exactly the same, kind of possibly boilerplate.
Now, I know we've talked about your process in other podcasts. Have you ever taken a shortcut and not really followed your process? And if you did, what happened?
Yeah, without a doubt, I've taken what I would also use the word shortcut. And for our listeners, it's important to put that in perspective. These were, process oriented as you set up, and it almost always is a good lesson for me. For example, there are times when I have assumed that somebody, whether it was a prospective client or client, has more knowledge than they actually do. And the trap that can fall into it is sometimes people might ascribe more knowledge in the area of financial matters if they're wealthier. Or maybe it's even their attitude, just, how people come across very confidently on all topics, or status. It could be title. And so that can cause me, or has caused me, to this by shortcut, is to not ask questions or making assumptions, so that the way I phrase my questions might not be so open-ended, but more leading. Like, I'm sure you blah, 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 blah. Well, that's leading to somebody simply saying yes or nodding, instead of me asking, do you, and leave it open-ended and have them explain it. So that's an area of shortcuts. And also sometimes, I think a lot of if we have any financial professionals out there listening to it, is sometimes with the people closest to us. When we have really strong relationships, think family, for example, and so there's not the same effort needed to establish a rapport and a level of trust. And if that, at times that has led to me not asking as many questions and getting deep into the questions regarding their values. I've known this person for X number of years. I've seen how they've lived their life. But that doesn't mean I'm correct about what their dreams are. That doesn't mean that, I fully understand what their objectives are, or the why that they do certain things. Because we all do certain things that you and I may be doing some of the same things, Patrice, but we may have different whys, different purpose for doing what we do. So those are two areas of shortcuts, but it is not having anything to do with the client's money or the allocation or all of that, but it is more the qualitative, the questioning and the listening, that sometimes is deemed unnecessary in a situation, and then it comes back to bite us.
Yeah, I can. People, I think, naturally will say, "Oh, well, I understand that." What do they call it? The Dunning-Kruger effect. They think they know more than they really do. Like, oh, sure, I understand
I'm
that.
not familiar with Dunning-Kruger, but I'm sure I would like it. Yeah, ego is powerful, and we all have it, and it's just and it's kind of tied into self-awareness at times in the way that you just illustrated.
Yeah. Well, taking that a step further, what is the value in having the tailored approach, the individual approach versus a cookie cutter approach? Say, well, you guys are all falling into this category, so I'm going to do this for you.
Well, at PCA, I think this is a big distinction that doesn't sound like much to the naked ear, if you will, is that money is nothing but ink on paper. It is meant to be transferred for items, experiences, and such that a family values. So in the end, that's the objective. That's our true north is, okay, what are you wanting to accomplish? The how to get there, the solutions, the strategies, the numbers, and all of that, in my view, need to be the last portion of a process, because the more that we fully understand through extended question and listening, the better we know the target that we're seeking. My experience is I think that we have a greater emphasis on that than other firms. I also, another way to use your cookie cutter is their tax status. So we could have two families, same number of kids, married, whatever, same, demographics. And if one of those families, and let's say they both have $1 million, but one of those families has some money in a traditional IRA or 401k pre-tax account, another account in that same household is a tax-free Roth, and then also maybe has an after-tax or taxable account, versus the other family that looks the same, their whole $1 million is in the 401k at work. Just based on the tax status of different accounts, we would make recommendations based on risk and what types of securities we recommend. However, many times in the industry, I've seen where a prospective client gives me their statements from the current firm. They have a traditional IRA, a Roth IRA, and a taxable account, after-tax account. And they're all invested exactly the same, exact same portfolio, moderate risk. And so I think some of the tax planning and tax mitigation that we do that is directly tied to each individual household and their actual tax situation by reviewing their tax return has an extended benefit for many. The questioning brings out, I was just touching on the qualitative in the question Q&A, but between different families, again, same money, same all of that, but what is their intent? What is the time frame before they want a big chunk of money?
Mm-hmm.
Or the time frame around turning on income that can completely affect how we invest. And that would just go into, for example, income strategies. I think that the industry focuses, as they should, they emphasize growth because most of us spend the bulk of our lives trying to grow our money to a pile that we can have the freedom to step away from employment if we choose. Much less emphasis on income planning. And I think in the industry, that's a bit of a blind spot. It's incredibly important. It's not easy to do. It ties in Social Security and IRA withdrawals and a bunch of the landscape is greater, but at the same time, that deep planning, Patrice, isn't as maybe sexy or as exciting as, boy, we really hit the ball out of the park with that particular stock. Growth is exciting. There's no doubt, but in the end, it's about using the money, as I touched on when we first got started here.
Technology, Ryan, it's a big thing today, especially with AI. I mean, technology was growing and was insinuating itself into the business. It sounds negative there, but it really isn't. But AI, now we've got that to deal with. How do you see technology when it comes to client relationships?
Well, I think, as a firm that is virtual, and we've leaned into that for about 5 years,
True.
technology has an outsized impact with our firm. So whether it's what we're doing right now with Zooms, video emails, we use technology in, texting to clients, back in our day, Patrice, when there was just snail mail.
Now, just stop it, Ryan.
There was paper. And then of course our mailboxes got flooded with what? Junk mail.
That's right.
And then email came along and okay, this was that whole new avenue. And now anybody can look at their deleted or their inboxes and they're flooded. So I think we're still in a phase where texting, if you had an envelope in your mailbox right now, an email in your email inbox, or a text on your phone, the text on the phone is much more apt to get your attention today versus in the past. So that's a way that we can connect with clients. And I think of technology, it really frees. We've recaptured so much time. I think it frees me and my team up to focus more on the relationship issues. The efficiency behind the curtain, running a financial planning practice is so far ahead with our CRM, client relationship manager software. We have quick access to your wedding anniversary, your birth date, the names of your grandchildren, these kinds of things. AI, we're still, well, I like to think of us as on the cutting edge of technology. In the artificial intelligence world, the industry and the SEC, I think in many ways, is still figuring things out. And so we're working with our compliance department to be compliant, because when you cite particular facts or cite particular information, sourcing it is critical. A big part of communication in my industry, in the financial industry, through any forum, this or otherwise, is the SEC does not want it to any way be misleading. So that's where sourcing and all that. And, right now I can't say, well, here's an answer to a question. And I got it off of ChatGPT. So it's a bit of a moving target. And I think that's certainly going to grow. But I would say the biggest thing is that we have recaptured so much time for me and my team to do more personal outreach to clients in a variety of ways, because a lot of the work can be done, the trading and all the stuff that's typically done internally and behind, as I say, the curtain, is so much more efficient.
I agree with you about the text on the phone, especially. That is the thing that will get answered first, and then the email. But you know what I've been seeing lately? I'm getting more snail mail, more come to the webinar, well, it wouldn't be a webinar, come to the seminar, come to the dinners are back. You're getting the dinner invitations again.
Yep.
Where did that come from?
And we've kind of circled back on that as well, because and there's that saying, old is new again, but the snail mail became so ineffective because of all the junk mail. People kind of turned it off. But now it's more of an open channel again, because whatever you might send via paper isn't as crowded. So, for example, what we did in, I think it was February of this year, but early this year, or maybe late last year, time flies. I wanted to put out what amounted to, in effect, kind of an annual report from the CEO, from me.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't know, it's about 3 or 4 pages, but I chose to do it on hard stock, send it in a large envelope, because I believed that it would be most assured that people actually touched it, that actually looked at it. Because the other thing about the snail mail, if it's sent in a larger envelope, that stands out. So I think that that's more of an open channel today than it was even 5 or 10 years ago now. Again, if you're trying to reach somebody, and through whatever channel, all you want to get the eyeballs on whatever you send. And I think email's difficult unless you already have a relationship with them, with our clients. Mm-hmm. We augment that oftentimes with video emails. That seems to get more attention, and there's more energy in it if I'm speaking for 45 seconds on the content, and also the content is in words. And the texting, as we mentioned, if you go back to the phone also, I mean, essentially nobody answers their phone from an unfamiliar number these days.
That's right.
It just doesn't happen. Maybe if you've been communicating with contractors or utilities in your area code recently, you might, if it's call coming in from your area code, you might, but effectively nobody answers a call unless they know who it is. So that's difficult certainly to reach out to people that you don't yet have a relationship with.
Which brings up the next question, all these different ways to interact with people. Have you seen a change in client expectations? Throughout your career. I mean, you're the one who first brought up that we may belong to a different generation than some of those people listening today. But seriously, what have you seen in changes among expectations?
The attention spans are shorter. I think.
Okay.
Everybody wants everything now. And on the positive side of it, so many areas of technology have made that possible. You have current events anywhere in the world of any substance. Instantly, it's on X or through whatever channel. So I mean, that's a dramatic change from the daily newspaper.
Yes.
Or as a sports fan growing up, and I'd read the box scores, and they'd come out, in the newspaper once a day, and now 24/7 I can check. And I think that has that then extends. I guess I don't really think of short attention spans is not entirely negative, but it does change the expectation of answers now. Now, how we've dealt with that in part is, I've always believed, but I think it's more applicable in this context, is that when me or my team are communicating with somebody, before you're done communicating, set expectations as to when you're going to get back. So somebody calls in, they have a question, we don't know the answer immediately. I always tell my team, I don't know is a perfectly suitable response, as long as you say you're going to find out and you're going to report back to them. So if they called and you say, I know I can get that answer by the end of the day, and then you do it by the end of the day, you've made a promise, you've kept the promise. And that make a promise, keep a promise, and that habit, I think, really stands out in today's world, where short attention spans, but also there doesn't seem to be the commitment to customer service and follow-up. And I know our audience has had far more experiences that are disappointing in the last 10 years or last 5 years than they did prior to that. I mean, credit card companies, or you name it, getting somebody to actually follow up. They might say on the phone they're going to do it, but they don't make a commitment as to when. They don't make a commitment as to how they're going to follow up. And then, of course, a lot of times the person, or at least me, has to call up because it didn't happen.
And that's assuming you can get a person on the phone.
Correct. Yes.
That is a huge issue too.
With the client experience, Patrice, it's amazing, without mentioning any companies, if you just kind of go through the process of the automation and all of that, it's like did the CEO or the department head ever actually try that themselves?
Ah,
I think so much policy is set with the deliverer in mind and not the receiver in mind. And all it, when I used to coach advisors a lot on practice management, I said, call your voicemail and put it on speaker and see if you like how it sounds and how it leads you. Just simple stuff like that, that it seems that nobody's paying attention.
that's an excellent point. Absolutely. It's not for the recipient, it's for the deliverer. You're absolutely correct. And with that in mind, what do you tell people? How should they think about their relationship and review their relationship with their advisor? In their minds, they don't have to go and talk to them face to face yet, but review it in their minds, review it in their notes, and then maybe go and say, I want more.
Well, during our initial process, that's one of we're digging into that is questions like, do you prefer the big picture or do you like to get a lot of details in the weeds? Which is kind of a personality aspect.
Mm-hmm.
So we're getting an initial, this is even prior to bringing on or inviting a client, inviting a prospective client to become a client. We want to get a sense of what are their expectations, because we have to decide if we're willing to deliver on those or capable of delivering on them. So I just think it's continuing to have open communication in that area. And there are times absolutely where we've had a client for a while and their demands or expectations are not what we're willing to do. There's just not an alignment there, whether we might think they're unreasonable, they might think, but if there's not an alignment in that area, then there are times when we just have to separate ourselves. So that's really an ongoing process with my team. To make promises, don't overcommit, but keep your promises. And we've done surveys also with clients on what is your preferred way to receive communication. And we do our best to, the old Burger King commercial, have it your way. I think that was Burger King, but
Yes, it was.
but it is an ongoing moving target. But touch on one thing, Patrice, the technology and all of its, how it permeates through our firm has made possible what I don't think was possible or not as easy in the past, is that we can scale customization. When you think about McDonald's and you think about all of the processes, whether it was the Model T coming off with Ford, it was about, a process where everything was the same because there was efficiency in that. But technology and what goes on, as I say, behind the curtain has allowed us to scale customization in a way that I think we're several years ahead of much of the industry, in my view. That's just my personal view.
Well, how can someone reach you, Ryan, if they want to talk about this?
Well, we're our website, www.poterack.net. That's POTERACK.net. We're out there on X, formerly Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. You can always call our phone number at 704-366-5776 as well. And you'll probably have the delightful Anna Hopkins, who's worked with me for over 17 years, be the one to answer the phone. So,
and she is on top of everything. I'll tell you.
She
that.
really is. Yep.
Yeah. All right, folks, that positive financial relationship you want may be waiting for you at Poterack Capital Advisory. And there are also positive insights on Ryan's podcast, Life Isn't Lived on a Spreadsheet. So make sure you follow it to know when a new show is ready for you. And of course, please share with others. I'm Patrice Sikora, and thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Patrice.
Thank you for listening to Life Isn't Lived on a Spreadsheet. Click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. To ask questions about topics covered during the show or get a copy of Making It Count, Life Isn't Lived on a Spreadsheet by Ryan Poterack, visit www.poterack.net or give us a call at 704-366-5776. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Poterack Capital Advisory. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning. Poterack Capital Advisory does not offer legal or tax advice. please consult the appropriate professional regarding your individual circumstances. Nothing contained herein is to be considered a solicitation, research material, an investment recommendation, or advice of any kind. The information contained herein may contain information that is subject to change without notice. Any investments or strategies referenced herein do not take into account the investment objectives, financial situation, or particular needs of any specific person.
Product sustainability must be independently determined for each individual investor. Poterack Capital Advisory explicitly disclaims any responsibility for product suitability or suitability determinations related to individual investors.